Tucked in the rolling subtropical mountains of the southeast Chinese province of Fujian are a series of giant multi-storied homes built with wood and fortified with mud walls. Constructed between the 15th and 20th centuries, these massive communal homes were sited with feng shui principles and are purposefully nestled amidst tea, tobacco, and rice fields and bountiful forests of pine and bamboo. These 46 structures are known as the Fujian Tulu. Throughout history, their residents have mostly been Hakka, migrants in southern China who originated from lands adjacent to the Yellow River. Population pressures created conflict between the Hakka and their neighbors, so they built their homes to double as fortification structures. Walls are up to 5 feet thick and can reach 60 feet high. Defensive features include ironclad gates, underground escape tunnels, weapon slits underneath the dark, tiled roofs, a water well, and a backup stock of grains and livestock in the event of a lengthy conflict. The buildings, usually 3 to 4 stories, are symmetrical in their shapes. This means that in the event of a conflict, there are no blind spots. Outsiders are most likely marveled at Tulu's odd-looking appearance and sophisticated structure. A Tulu is usually large, round, or square, built into 3 to 5 stories, measuring 70 meters, housing for up to 80 families. The load-bearing rammed earth walls are as thick as 1.8 meters, enclosing smaller interior structures for storing items and raising livestock. With such a rigorous setting, this special building is like a little kingdom for the family or bustling small city. Why is a Tulu built in this way? Tulu dates back between the 12th and the 20th centuries when outlaws and bandits roamed freely in the mountainous areas, forcing Hakka people to create Tulu, as unbreakable as a castle, to defend against the bad people and help keep out big wild animals. On the one hand, the fortified outer structures are made of compacting earth, mixed with stone, granite, bamboo, wood, and other readily available materials. On the other hand, there is only one iron-coated central entrance, along with narrow windows and gun holes. Tulu interiors are primarily constructed of wood. All of these result in a well-lit, well-ventilated, windproof, fireproof, quake-proof building which is warm in winter and cool in summer. The Fujian Tulu are defensive forts but also community buildings. Their form allows them to unite several families within the same building, or a whole clan. These closed volumes could house up to 800 people within their terracotta walls. The architecture and organization of the Tulu is not reproducing the social hierarchy. Everyone is at the same level. Each family, depending on its size, could own one or more bays. The first floor, open to the courtyard, was the kitchen and dining area. The second floor was a storeroom. The third floor and those above held bedrooms. The rooms are of the same size, with the same windows, rising vertically according to the size of the family. While the exterior wall is devoid of ornamentation and has few openings, especially at floor level, the wall facing the inner core is more decorated, more open. Indeed, the inner courtyards are places of family unity, of sharing. Low buildings are often built in the middle of these courtyards. They are places of education for children, or places to commemorate ancestors. Otherwise, the central square can serve as a market, a commercial place, a common space for the community. Everyone used the same corridors and stairways. Rules of conduct, clean up waste, respect elders, contribute to festivals, were posted inside the entrance. As the ultimate communal gesture, rooms were identical in size and decoration, whether they belonged to the Hakka clan leader or a common pig farmer. The use of regional materials, their integration into the landscape, and the transmission of this knowledge over the centuries make the Fujian Tulu a perfect example of virtuous and inclusive vernacular architecture. But they are also recognizable for their different typologies. Initially, the Fujian Tulu followed a square shape open inside. The corners were then more exposed, less luminous, and with a distinct and less performing ventilation. Later, the round shape became a viable alternative. The figure of the circle reinforced the community idea, the defensive vocation, and allowed a better diffuse ventilation. The rectangular shape also developed in a distinct way, as a variation from the original square shape. From these 3 typologies, other forms developed, such as the oval, the hexagonal, or the half-moon. Of the 35,000 clay buildings in southern China, more than 3,700 are classified as Tulu. Most of them are square, more than 2,000 or circular, more than 1,000. The Fujian Tulu allowed the defense and prosperity of the clans and their perfect autonomy, while reproducing the traditional communal pattern of the Chinese family in a high-performance building integrated into the Fujian Mountains. All these characteristics made them iconic buildings, reflecting the image of the clan that inhabited it. The model developed and spread in the Fujian region, but also around the original Tulu. These Tulu groups are clusters composed of several buildings, often mixing shapes. They are of different sizes and heights, the largest covering an area of 40,000 square meters. Each structure essentially doubles as a self-contained village. While the Tulu are open to the public for visitation, there are still people living in them, many of whom are from the same clan. Communal living is integral to these villages, as well as equality. Each of the rooms is identical in design. The closed-wall design fosters social interaction. Although individual families have their own sections, residents congregate in the courtyard for ceremonies such as ancestor worship and weddings. Tulu have been losing people in droves for at least 25 years, since China revved up its economy and a consumer society took off. People didn't want to live in cramped spaces with no indoor plumbing. In places built to hold hundreds of people, often only 5 or 6 residents remained. They were mostly old-timers, frail and living alone. Weeds often grew among the cobblestones, and the wells held stagnant water. Sometimes a small child stood in the shadows, one of the so-called left-behind children, consigned to the care of an aged relative while the parents lived and worked in a distant city. In its heyday, a magnificent, richly decorated Tulu with 400 inhabitants, but today a museum with most of its rooms padlocked. When the Tulu belonged to a big clan, each family would contribute money for repair. Now they don't want to spend money on something that belonged to their ancestors. They want to spend it on themselves. Tulu as physical objects won't disappear. The walls were built to last centuries. As a practical design, Tulu might even make a comeback. Engineers and architects studying rammed earth construction see the Tulu as a prototype of a green building, energy efficient, harmonious with the landscape, and built from local, natural materials. In 2008, 46 Tulu, many more are scattered throughout the region, were given World Heritage status by UNESCO. The subsequent influx of tourism in the area has not only kept the buildings from falling into disarray, but has bolstered the local businesses and allowed the Tulus to remain living and functional relics. One anecdote is that the US once mistook the odd-looking Tulu houses for missile launch silos when viewing satellite images during the 1960s. Unable to figure out what the 1,500 mysterious constructions really were, CIA sent 2 agents disguised as a tourist couple in 1985 and finally found they were actually ancient residential buildings.